Los Angeles, where as at this time, 9 are dead, 192 injured, and there have been 200 arrests following the acquittal of 4 police officers in the beating of Rodney King. Here is just some of what is happening in Los Angeles. Here from Channel 4 in Los Angeles is a helicopter shot. This is grim.
They're pulling the driver out of the van and they're kicking the driver and beating the driver. The driver's only mistake was entering this area. He's been kicked in the head. He's laying in the street. Okay, this is it. Terrible, terrible pictures. This is what all this guy did was enter this area. That's his only crime. Hit the siren, Doug. Yes. Okay, this guy is laying in the street. Hit the siren, Doug. He is bleeding, unconscious in the street. Ross? Oh, it's tragic.
Well, let me tell you who's here. Theodore Brasino is on the satellite from Burbank in the company of his attorney-at-law, John Barnett. Officer Brasino, as you know, was one of the 4 charged in the beating of Rodney King and was, of course, one of the accused. You should know that Officer Brasino separated himself from the 3 other defendants by saying that he thought we were out of control. Also with us in the studio are the Reverend Al Sharpton, a civil rights activist, here in the company of Ira Glasser, Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union. On the satellite from Washington, D.C. is Representative John Conyers of the Democrat from Michigan, who has been on the issue of police brutality for a long time. May I ask all our guests to be respectful of the limited time we have and the number of people who are on our program. We would hope also in a moment to have an opportunity to have our audience make their own contribution. Officer Brasino, I assume you haven't had much sleep.
That's correct. That's correct, sir.
You're what some cops in the LAPD would call a fink. How do you feel about this decision that you've made, and kindly share with us now your own feelings? Is it a feeling of loneliness? Are you concerned? Could you possibly have anticipated this kind of result? Take a moment, sir, and tell us what's going on in your own head right now.
Okay, as far as your statements of people calling me a fink, I have heard nothing whatsoever of any comments by that. I am getting extremely amount of support from the department. People don't understand. They weren't there March 3rd, 1991. You stated at the beginning that we were out of control. I think that it's better if you, or if I could correct you by stating that I stated that the whole incident was out of control, that the other officers were out of control.
All right, I'm not sure I understand the distinction, but in any event, we have to say that this was a very courageous thing for you to do. And I accept your point about police departments supporting you. But is it your intention, do you intend to continue in law enforcement? Is that your desire?
Yes, sir.
Congressman Conyers, what might you want to share with our audience here at the beginning of our program?
Well, we're dealing with a historical phenomenon. Racism in police violence against African Americans was somewhat an ambiguous proposition until Rodney King incident traumatized not only this country, but the entire world about the nature and the viciousness and inhumanity that some few police officers have about black people.
Yeah, we should have known. That's a Washington line, so let's try and get it back. We'll just take our time here. Let me just do a little legal work here with Ira Glasser, Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union. Mr. Glasser, sir, the change of venue is at the heart of this agony. You're back, Congressman Conyers?
Yes, sir.
You can hear me?
I can.
Very good. Let me just continue here with Mr. Glasser. What percentage of Ventura County is black?
2%.
Was there a hue and cry when the venue change was announced?
Well, from some quarters, the venue change was moved by the defense to get it out of Los Angeles County. But it was the judiciary that decided where to put it. And once they make that decision, that's it. There's not much you can say. So there weren't any blacks to speak of in the jury pool to begin with.
Yes. Attorney Barnett, do I understand that the jury pool from which the 12-member jury, 8 whites, 1 Asian, and 1 Hispanic, who came back with this verdict, came from a pool of approximately 500 Ventura County citizens? Is that in round numbers accurate?
Yes, sir, it is.
And at the time of the I think, is it voir dire when you
Voir
dire. Were there any black candidates for this jury at that time?
There were some. Many excused themselves for personal reasons, but there were some who were questioned by the court. We did not do any questions personally.
Do you recall how many were questioned by the court?
3 or 4, I believe. I'm not certain.
Do you recall, were peremptory challenges used to dismiss them?
I think so, but I don't recall precisely how the peremptory challenges were exercised, but I think some were used to exercised in that manner.
Right. Back to Congressman Conyers. Sir, you serve in the United States Congress at a time when the body, both chambers, may be in as low esteem as we have known in this century. You also, sir, serve at a time when the judiciary, the ostensibly equal branch of government, has more power than ever before. Do you agree with that observation?
Yes, I certainly do.
Right. You also serve at a time when the occupant of the Oval Office, a member of the Republican Party, a party that does not even have 10% of African-American support, appears to have little or no credibility at all with the African-American community. Is it unfair to say that we have in place here an incendiary situation that was waiting for this videotape to happen?
Well, the president, and I've urged him along with other members of the Congressional Black Caucus, owes America a statement that suggests that he understands the historic import of a black man who's a victim of police brutality, with the best evidence that will ever be brought forward in any case. And then we have a president who says that his acquittal, the acquittal of all the cops that tried to kill him, proved that the system worked. We're asking that there be leadership, and the fact that he's a Republican is immaterial. What I'm trying to get to do to relieve and discontinue the violence in Los Angeles that may in fact be spreading is to get the President of the United States to act like he had the same amount of sympathy that he expressed when he first saw the videotapes a year ago.
Do I have Mr. Violante on the telephone?
So.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
You are president, sir, of the Los Angeles Police Protective League.
Yes.
Well, you know that you appear on our program in the company of Theodore Brasino. You know that?
Brasino's there?
Yes. He's on the satellite from Burbank.
Okay.
Yes. Do you understand what Officer Brasino did in this trial, and do you understand what moved him to separate himself from his fellow defendants? Can you hear me, sir?
No, I'm sorry. I had difficulty hearing you.
What is there anything you'd like to say to Officer Brasino?
Well, what I'd like to state, though, is that this verdict should not be interpreted as a approval of the manner in which the arrest of Rodney King occurred. It's rather a determination that the officers had limited options available to them in effecting the arrest. and their actions were clearly done without malice. The trial pointed out the officer's state of mind at the time of this incident. Each officer had their own state of mind. The officers believed that they had no other course of action available to do their job, and a jury of their peers agreed with that.
Yeah. Did Officer Brasino, would you have any response to that observation?
No, I agree exactly with Bill Violante stated. Like I said, people were not there March the 3rd of 91. This incident went down in a matter of 81 seconds. When you're an officer and you're involved in an incident like this, you have what we call tunnel vision. Every officer gets that. I think what you have to understand is that every officer there has his own perspective and his own opinions. One officer sees one thing, another officer sees a different thing. And I think that's what we had here at the scene that incident.
The Reverend Al Sharpton commenting.
Well, I think that any mob that lynches people has tunnel vision. I mean, to say you have tunnel vision don't justify what we see on this video. What is amazing to me, Phil, is how people can sympathize when they see violence today in L.A. and cannot have the same sympathy when they see Rodney King been on the ground with policemen taking turns trying to beat his brains out. And they expect us to distribute compassion.
Yeah. How would you respond to that, Mr. Violante?
Well, you know what? I think what's going on here is absolutely tragic. We have people that are channeling their energies in the wrong direction. What we need in this city right now is a healing process to take place. Instead, what we have is we have people that are agitating, that are sending messages out. And look at what's happening in the city of Los Angeles right now. Some of these statements are inflammatory. They're incitive. And we have terrible, terrible things happening in the city. It's time to start the healing process.
Right.
I just walked the streets of South Central Los Angeles. I was with the police officers. I was with people in the community. I just came back from there. There are people whose homes are being burnt down.
Yeah.
They have done nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. You cannot justify what is happening right now.
Right. Wait a minute, we're not justifying it. The fact of the matter is, sir, that none of that happened until this jury came back to justify what was done to Rodney King. These people didn't just go out in the streets and start this until they felt that all levels of protection under the law had been exhausted. And for you to justify what happened to Rodney King does not put you in a position to condemn them.
First of all, I am not justifying anything. What I am saying is this trial is over. We need a healing process to take place right now. People with inflammatory remarks are not going to do anything. There are people, citizens of South Central Los Angeles right now, that are having their homes burnt down. They're saying, wait a second, I am being thrown in with everybody else. People are calling, saying that I'm a looter and that I'm doing these things, and I'm not. This is wrong. It's time for the leadership of the community and the city to stand up and say, this has got to stop.
Yeah, but Mr. Violante, we needed your voice following this arrest to stand up and say, this kind of behavior has got to stop. Tell me why that's not a fair question.
The Los Angeles Police Protective League was there. We said that we needed change. We needed true reform on the police department. That's what we said.
Do we?
And no, let me finish. The problem is the reason we don't have that is because we are an understaffed police department. We do not have sufficient officers to police the city. We don't have sufficient equipment. We don't have ongoing training programs. We don't have stress reduction programs. The stress reduction program that we had was eliminated by the city council January of this year.
Yes.
There are things that need to take place. You can't. You have to look at everything in total. You can't just look at one aspect of it and say you're going to solve a problem.
The
city of Los Angeles has 2 officers per 1,000. Chicago has 4.5. Detroit has 4.
Yeah. Mr. Glasser makes a point. Sir.
Look, the fact is that if we had seen a film of that kind of a beating from South Africa, we all would have known what it meant. And it meant the same thing in Los Angeles.
That's right.
And the problem is that it didn't start on March 3rd of 1991. Los Angeles has had a pattern of that kind of police brutality racially disparate for decades. And the problem has been the leadership in the police department. If the videotape hadn't been there, it would have been covered up. And until we confront the racism that's involved with that, the fact is that when a jury can say